I'm Chris.
I'm Sandy.
And this is Parenting Autism. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 129 of the Parenting Autism podcast. We are not live on YouTube for the first time, but we are now have video on YouTube for the first time. So here we are. This is us.
Hello.
And welcome to the show. And we hope maybe some listeners might like the YouTube format better. I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know, but I thought about getting all dressed up, doing my makeup, putting on my lipstick, and then I thought, no, if I set the bar too high, then I'll have to do that every time.
So there you go.
So you're getting the all natural. Here I am.
Yep.
And our first visible podcast.
We don't have a fancy studio like a lot of people, but hey, that's how we roll.
That's it.
So what do you want to talk about?
Well, as we normally do our podcasts, I'm going to talk about, the most recent week with Bryce. And also, I had mentioned before I was going to talk about, like, we feel isolated sometimes because we don't ask for help, but is it or because we're not receiving help, but is it because we're not asking for help, or what's the situation there? And I think that can kind of tie into what we're going to talk about with Bryce's most recent sleepover and how that whole thing went.
Yeah, how that whole thing went.
Yep. So if you look a little extra tired and now we're visible.
There's a story.
Yes, it was a late night last night and a full day, and we both have had naps, and yet we're still tired.
Yeah, all good. So where should we start on that?
Well, let's just say that first we want to congratulate Bryce for making state bowling for Special Olympics. So he will go there in a couple weeks. And last year he did not get selected for state, and he was super sad. And we prepared him this time because there's over 100 bowlers in our county, and so it's a lower percentage that goes. But Bryce was the first name called yesterday, and he was super excited. And I did share that clip on his YouTube video.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of YouTube, Bryce and his best friend now have a YouTube channel, and they're hoping that you'll subscribe.
Yes.
It's called Two Bros Explore More.
Yes.
And so it's going to be fun, I think. We're going to take Bryce and his best friend Michael on some adventures, and we're going to do some recordings with them, and that should be fun.
Yes, and I do believe that I should get some kind of blue ribbon or medal or yummy dessert for taking the boys to 9 different elevators yesterday so that I could record them and put together a compilation of their elevator tours. But I have to tell you, it's great commentary. And I know you didn't go because you were working on a house project.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, these boys together, Bryce doesn't normally talk a lot, and I try to encourage him to when we're doing our videos. But Michael talks more. And so by Michael talking more, Bryce did as well. But Michael was very focused on whether they were clean or not. So,
the elevators? Yeah.
Yes. And so then the ratings started coming on whether they smelled good, whether they looked good, whether the buttons, like the paint's wearing off the buttons. Some buttons were rusty. Some were cracked. One had dirty walls. One had cracked floors. One smelled like poop, which Bryce will tell you.
Wow.
So
People,
anyway,
keep your elevators clean. Bryce and Michael might be coming to visit.
I didn't even put their name because I don't want to get sued for slander or something. But it is true. If the boys are there, they're going to call you out. So it was great entertainment. I think you'll enjoy the video of the elevators. And if your kids like elevators, definitely subscribe because I think they will like that. I think they'll get a hoot out of both of the boys. And then we wanted to test this background last night, so we recorded them with the same setup. We didn't do a podcast because it's not going to air that way, but it is a YouTube video, and then they kind of recap their days, and that was pretty fun too.
Yeah, that was good.
So anyway, so they have those 2 videos up, and we'll be doing more adventures. So so we had a good week, and actually we were on here a week ago.
A week
so
ago,
we're doing good. We're back, but I want to go ahead and come on here today so we could just test this and get everything going. But with the sleepover last night, we did hit a little bit of a roadblock, we'll call it.
Or a hiccup.
And I'm talking to them more than you because you know what happened last night. But so the boys, I don't know. We picked Michael up early in the day, which is important to note. So it was 11:30, and he went to lunch with us. He went to the bowling with us. He's great. He loves to help. And so he was happy to help Bryce with bowling and things like that. And then they came home and they played for a little while. And then Michael's the one that said, I really want to create a YouTube channel. And so you and I were like, yeah, we'll make it happen. So we designed a logo with them. We created the channel. Everything was good. And then I took them on their elevator tours. We came back and they were playing something in Roblox. And I don't know the order of what happened. We just kind of came into the middle of when Bryce was
sketchy.
upset. Sketchy is a good word. And if you're familiar with ABA in our autism world, there's the ABCs and there's, what's the A?
Antecedent?
Thank you. The antecedent, which means what happened before the behavior. And then you got the B for behavior, and then the C, I guess, is the consequence or whatever happens afterwards. So we really don't know what the A antecedent was, but we do know that for some reason, Bryce told Michael to take away some ability in a game. Well, what Michael doesn't know is that Bryce will tell you to do things to him if he thinks he's being punished for something. And so Michael did it. And then Bryce got upset that Michael did it. And then Michael tried to undo it. And I don't know, we came somewhere in the middle of that. Well, things spiraled quickly. And
Bryce started crying.
Yeah, there were real tears going on. He was very hurt. He didn't understand why Michael did it. But then we actually took them into separate rooms. You removed him from the scene, which was good to do. Mm-hmm. But then while you're in there with Bryce, of course, I'm out here with Michael. And he was like...
we were trying to get the story straight.
Yeah, we're trying to get the story straight. So when Michael told me, he told me to do it. And I'm like, he told you to do it? He's like, yeah, but then I undid it. I gave it back to him. I said, did he see that? Well, I think he did.
No, Bryce told him to undo it. You said Michael told him to undo it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, if I said that wrong. Bryce told Michael to undo it, and then Michael gave it back. Maybe that's what I was trying to say.
Let's clarify this a little bit. So Bryce and Michael were on this game, and they both had admin privileges.
Oh, that's right.
And Bryce told Michael to remove Bryce's admin privilege as a punishment to Bryce himself.
But Michael didn't know that Bryce was doing it as a punishment to himself.
So Michael, being a friend that he is, he did what Bryce asked him to do.
Yeah.
And then Bryce was very upset when it really happened.
Yes. And we live with this with Bryce. He will tell us to do things to, I don't know, control the punishment. And we've talked about that in past episodes.
Yeah.
Whatever's going on in his mind, it's very confusing. But Michael didn't know that. So he's understands a lot of things about Bryce, but obviously he doesn't live with him all the time. And he didn't know. So
Michael was like a deer in the headlights. Bryce is crying. So I finally, after Bryce talked, privately for 5 or 10 minutes, I finally got out of Bryce that he asked Michael to remove his admin privileges. And I'm like, Bryce, you have to mean what you say. So when you tell somebody something, you have to mean it. You just can't be playing around all the time and not expect, something to happen for real, right? Even if you just can't do that.
Right. So where we went from there was Bryce came out with you and you're like, okay, go ahead and tell him. So Bryce needed to get it all out. And I had already prepped Michael that Bryce will do things that he doesn't mean. I said he's going to say things but we're just going to work through this. It's
And
going
he
to take a
came
little
right
while.
out. He told me before we left the room, he's like, I have to go tell Michael something.
Did you know what he was going to say?
Well, he said it earlier in our conversation, but after we worked through everything, I didn't know what he was going to say. And he said it anyway.
He did. So he came out and he said, Michael, I have to break up with you. I can't be your best friend anymore.
Yeah.
We have to break up and I can never see your face again.
Because when I look at your face,
it makes me sad.
It makes me sad.
And he was sad.
Michael was just
Michael's
like,
just sitting there.
What
like,
do I do?
And I'm rubbing Michael's knee because I'm like trying to comfort him. Like, okay, we're working through this. So I said, okay, Bryce, I understand. I said, are you saying this because you want Michael to be sad too? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, Michael, does that make you sad? And I'm nodding at Michael like,
yes. It should make you sad.
So Michael's like, yes.
And what time was this? Like 9
It was after 9 o'clock. So I was thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to have to drive Michael home. Yeah. So where he's like, yes. And I said, now I know that Bryce told you to do that to him, but could you still say that you're sorry because you didn't know that that would upset him? So Michael was a very good friend and he apologized. And Bryce was like, I still can't look at your face. We are still broken up forever. It was very sweet and sad. So we kind of knew like, okay, he's got it off his chest. So that's great. It's out there. Michael was handling it. So then you brought Michael into a different room and I stayed with Bryce.
Oh, yeah, because I needed help with the logo for their new YouTube channel. So I was like, hey, Michael, come here, help me write
Which
the
was good. So we separated them again. And now you were with Michael and I was with Bryce.
Mm-hmm. And Michael's like, is he really upset with me? I'm like, yeah. I said, he's just stuck right now where he's at. And he's just got to get unstuck. He's really sad right now, and he's just got to work through it. But he'll work through it, and it'll be okay.
And that's great that you told Michael that, because when I was with Michael, I told him the same thing. I said, it's the way that his brain works, and he will get stuck on something, and it's very hard for him to let that go. And right now, he's having a hard time letting this go. Mm-hmm. He will, but it will take time. Yeah. He goes, like an hour? I said, it could take about an hour. But I said, it used to take longer. It doesn't take as long as it used to. But he really can't help it. But we know how to help him, and we'll figure out. I said, sometimes tickling works. Sometimes tickling doesn't work. I don't know if he wants to be tickled right now, so we'll figure it out. And I tested that water, and that was not going to be the solution. So I kind of knew from there. So I had Bryce.
But then I was done with Michael.
Well, and then while you were with Michael, I talked to Bryce, and I said, so I understand you're really sad and you're upset with Michael. I said, but is it true that you told Michael to do that? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, then I don't think that makes it Michael's fault, right? And he goes, you're right. It's my fault. I said, it kind of is. If you told him to do it, he was being a good friend because he's doing what you told him to do. If he did it, that would make him maybe not a good friend. But he did what you told him to do, and he didn't know that that would upset you. Only you knew that you wanted to be sad by it. I said, so I really do think Michael is a really good friend for you. He loves you very much. And I think it wasn't his fault. I think he was being a good friend. Do you agree? And he goes, it was my fault. He is a good friend, but I still can't look at him. I said, okay, that's okay. So now we came out.
So then everybody gets back together. Bryce is still having a hard time. So you mentioned that you wanted to play some games.
I did.
And Bryce did not want to play because Michael was there and he couldn't still look at Michael.
Right.
So you took Michael over and you were playing Yahtzee with him.
Yep.
And having fun.
Yep.
And Bryce saw how fun that was.
Yep.
And I said, Bryce, do you want to get in on the next game? And finally, this is after a little while.
Yeah.
And he says, yes. And then a little bit later, he said, I don't want to play Yahtzee. I want to play Uno.
We're like, great. So then he says, I still can't look at Michael's face. So I said, all right, well, we'll put a towel over your head. And now by this time, we could be a little silly with him.
And it was working.
And we knew that. So I grabbed one of the kitchen towels, and I took a chip clip, and so I put it over his face, and I clipped it, and I said, "Oh, you look like Mr. Towel Man." Napkin Man or something like that. So he's laughing and he can't see anything.
And then the towel falls off.
Yeah, and he's like, I don't know where to go. And he's laughing. We guide him
but
to
Bryce,
his
you
chair.
gotta look at your cards. You know?
How you going? He goes, oh, this could be a problem.
So
we're like, yeah.
That's how it started.
It did. And then Michael's laughing and Bryce was laughing. And then eventually Bryce took it off. There was no more words about it. We played Uno.
And we played Uno Attack. So it's the one where you hit the button and a bunch of cards come out. Well, they think that's the best thing since sliced bread. So that just added to the laughter and the fun. And by bedtime, thank God, everything was smoothed out.
Yep.
And they slept in the same bed together. And
it worked out well. They slept together until 4:45 a.m.
Yeah, Bryce woke up.
So then, you wanted to know what happened afterwards?
Yeah, you didn't tell me,
So it was about 4:45. Bryce comes into the room. Daddy, I cannot sleep. He's full volume. Trust me, when he comes in at 4:45.
There's no inside voice with Bryce.
No, it's very loud.
Even though we've told him 50,000 times, there's no inside voice. It's full volume.
Full volume, Daddy, I cannot sleep. So, that was another thing Bryce was worried about, by the way. We've had this big incentive for him that if he will sleep in his room without us and without us having to stay in there, if he does it 30 nights in a row, he gets a special prize. And he's not very far from that. He's like less than a week. And he thought Michael coming was going to blow that. So I had to assure him that it still counted if Michael was with him, as long as we were not with him. Right. So we got through that hurdle too. And then he was afraid that he blew it by getting up at 4:45. And I said, no.
Well, I told him, I said, it's okay if you wake up. You just can't cross the doorway unless you have to go to the bathroom. And then that's when he came in.
Apparently he crossed it, so he's worried. So I'm like, no. If you go back there and go to sleep now, you'll be good. And he's like, I can't. And Michael's in the bed, which was the air mattress we blew up. So I'm
thinking to myself, on a regular night without Michael, getting Bryce back into his own bed is a small miracle. I'm like, how is Sandy going to do this without waking up Michael, getting Bryce in the bed full volume? And, how'd you do it?
So I brought Bryce in and I looked, and it did appear that Michael was still sleeping. So I was like, okay. So I told Bryce, you can get up in your bed. So I got him up in his bed. And he was cold. You don't have to talk quietly. Oh, sorry. Okay. And so I think it's nighttime at 4:45 a.m. So anyway, I could tell he was super cold. He did go to the bathroom, and he had like chill bumps all over him. So I said, okay, let's get you in your bed. You're very cold. So I got him up there, and he just immediately covered himself with his comforter. So I just started rubbing his back. I did not get in the bed with him. I just started rubbing his back, and he had his whale with him, Splashy. Yeah. So he had Splashy on one side, and I put Flippy the dolphin on the other side. So he was kind of cradled between the two of them. Mm-hmm. And I just kept rubbing him, and I soothed him. And then I whispered in his ear, it's okay. You're still going to get your Robux. It's okay. You did not blow it. We're okay. I heard that. And then I would say within 10 minutes, I knew he was out.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I have to go to the bathroom. So I thought, let me leave. And then I came back to just look in, and I saw Michael was moving. Mm-hmm. So I went down there and I whispered, are you okay, Michael? And he's like, yes, I'm cold. Well, when I came in, Michael was under the blanket. Mm-hmm. So when I left, the blanket was off of Michael. I really think that he must have seen what I was doing with Bryce and consoling him and rubbing him. Yeah. So he wanted me to do that. So I put the heavy blue blanket on him, and I'm rubbing him, and I said, is that better? He goes, I'm still a little cold. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, let me get the other blanket. Good. So I had another blanket, so I had him double blanketed now. Yeah. And I just rubbed his back, to kind of soothe him and comfort him. And I said, are you warmer now? And he goes, yes. I said, are you going to be able to go back to sleep? Because it's only 5:00. He said, yes. I said, okay, buddy. So I left them, and I wasn't sure, but they stayed asleep, and we got Bryce up for church at 9.
You came back to bed, and I'm like, how in the world did that happen? And then I'm like, okay, Bryce is going to be in in a few minutes. And then he never came.
He did
I
it.
was like,
He was able to go back to sleep, and Michael was able to go back to sleep, and the Lord shined upon us, especially after the night we had. And so you and I, after church, I was so exhausted. I fell asleep on the couch, and I rarely take a nap, but
we
it was
were just
good.
exhausted. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
but
good.
it was so good. And then like when we woke up this morning, the boys were great. It's like with Bryce, once he's past that, he's good. He's really, really good. And so this morning, we got the routine, and then Bryce was super excited because Michael went into the Treehouse church service with him today for the first time. And Bryce has been begging Michael to go with him. And Michael has some anxiety issues, and he's been very afraid to go.
And Miss Gina says, do we have any new visitors here today? And Bryce stands up and he's like, my friend Michael's here today for the first time. And I'm like...
And did you hear him say, like, very loud, audibly, I can't believe Michael's finally here. Like, he was saying it to himself, but out loud. He was so proud and happy of that.
And Michael got the prize bag.
He did. And he did good. So Michael... he just wants to be a helper. And so once we figured that out, we got permission that he could go with me and you first in the kindergarten a second and help us. And then we all met up with Bryce. And then he's like, Bryce, did you see I'm here? Like he knew that made Bryce. He goes, Bryce is so happy I'm here. I go, Bryce is very happy that you're here. And Michael could sit by me because Bryce is a 5th grade leader now. I don't know if we announced that, but he's been selected to lead worship. And so he and I practiced the song all week with the motions, and then they gave him a new one today, and he went out loud, oh man, a new one?
Yeah.
So we're like, yep, but that's okay. He'll learn it, and it's good for him. And I love that our church is giving him the opportunity to use his abilities. I probably did talk about this because last week we talked about using abilities. So he did great this week.
And Michael was able to see what all goes on behind the scenes or during, whatever we call it. And he was very comfortable with that. So I think next Sunday he'll be coming back.
I think he will too.
Because normally he would go to the main service with his mom. Yeah.
And we just want him to be with the kids, and it's good for him, and it's good for Bryce, and it helps him. We just want him to overcome his anxiety too. So it was like a win-win-win today. And
if we tell him that Bryce needs a helper in his classroom,
he could be his buddy.
He could,
so to speak.
Yeah. Help him,
which is great. Oh, and Bryce. This is another thing that we had said. We really want Bryce to learn to make friends at church because he just hasn't, and it's to nobody's fault. It's just Bryce doesn't initiate, right? So we go to pick him up today, and he was exchanging information with a little boy who was in our class before that just promoted up. But he also, I have a feeling he might be on spectrum, and he also plays the games that Bryce likes, like the energy core and nuclear bombs and things like that. And they exchanged info, and Bryce, and then Michael's like, "Oh, Bryce has another friend." Like,
and then we introduced Michael, and so it was.
So they all got their information together, and so we're feeling really happy about all that. So I'm gonna kind of take that and lead into that other conversation because I was thinking about this. So it's great when we have Michael come and stay with us because we kind of know what's going on, right? And if the boat rocks, we have the tools to know how to calm it. But if that were to happen for any reason, when he is at Michael's house, that
without us there,
without us being there, right? Let's just say like it was a sleepover at Michael's. Let's
we would
reverse
have been going
that.
over there at 10 o'clock to get Bryce.
I don't know what he would do. I mean, would he just hold it all in until we see him the next day and then it would burst like a dam?
That's possible.
Or would he shut down and then they wouldn't know why he shut down? That's very possible too. And it's like, I know that we could say to Michael's mommy, can we drop Bryce off while we go to dinner or something like that? And I think for a couple hours, they should be fine. But if they were to invite him, like to take him for the day like we do, right?
Yeah.
They want to help us, right?
Something tells me that there's a large % chance that something would happen.
Yeah.
And no fault of theirs.
And no fault of theirs. And so I was listening to some people talking on a podcast and they were saying, we feel isolated and we feel like nobody understands our world and we don't have the help like other people have and we can't do the things like other people do. And even with foods, you know, especially like in Bryce's case, he has special foods and things like that. But then I think about it and I think, are you isolated always because nobody wants to help you? Or is it because people may want to, but they don't know how to? And it's too much of an effort to educate them how to, you know what I'm saying? And I just think that I wanted to share that because I think that's good food for thought for every parent who travels this journey. Now, I will say when Bryce was younger, we were very, very hesitant to leave him with just anybody because he had less language and more behaviors that needed to be interpreted, I guess, to say it that way, right?
Yeah.
And sleepovers were extremely rare, occasionally at my mom's. And, you know, I think with mom, there's really not much of a chance that something's going to happen because he just kind of does his own thing when he's over there. And
mom's good.
She's great with him.
She has intuition. She knows what to do.
Yeah, and everything's good, and he's very comfortable there, and it's not like there's another child or he's like out of his routine. But putting him out of his routine or putting around other kids, especially where something could be competitive or something could throw him off.
If they went somewhere and he forgot his headphones, that would be the end of it, right?
Right, and mom keeps him home.
Right. I'm just saying if he was with somebody else.
Yes. Yeah. So
it's a delicate thing. You know, you have to take it case by case.
So I guess, what do I want to say about that? Okay. Here's what I really want to say about it.
What do you want to say about
I don't know. Maybe
what are you talking about, Willis?
How do I say these words? Okay, so you know on American Idol, I say, if you don't vote, you can't complain. Mm-hmm. Okay. I kind of feel like if you're not willing to help educate other people, I'm talking about myself as well, then I can't complain. Mm-hmm. If I'm not willing to take the time to figure out how to maybe prepare somebody watching my child for, you know, these are the foods he can, and I take the foods. And Bryce has that at mom's. These are the foods he can have, you know, and we would rather he not have these. Now, these will send him to the ER. Don't give him peanuts. Others, I'd rather him not have because he'll break out like he has acne, you know, but it's okay, right? And if a rule is broken, I can live with that as long as it's not peanuts. So I educate her, right? And anybody that's watching Bryce, that would be the same thing because we are looking into getting some respite help, right? So that's on us to take the time and make the effort to educate them and then trust. And trust is hard when we have our children, especially when they're nonverbal or even with Bryce. He's verbal, but if he's stuck, man, it's hard to get him off of that. Yeah. And it's hard to get all the details of the story. So you really know what happened because you're kind of coming in the middle and you have no clue what happened and how do you undo this? And it can take hours at a time. And that's challenging. It is. And if it's challenging for us, I understand it's going to be challenging for others. But I would say at minimum, we don't need to be sending him off for overnight stays. And maybe that's not going to be in the cards for him at this time or anytime soon. But
you really have to have somebody like your mom with a calm demeanor and a lot of patience. I mean, those two things right there go miles toward somebody being able to handle watching a child like Bryce. You know, it's just when something happens, don't react right away, right? You be patient, you be calm, and that helps them be calm. So, you know, that's the half the battle, I think.
And I think with him, you know, again, he's older. So when he was younger, it's a different conversation. So for people who are listening or watching that they have younger children, I get it. Believe me, it takes time to where you feel more comfortable leaving him. And in our situation, we don't send Bryce to school every day. Mm-mm. See, that takes trust in itself, in my opinion, to send your child to school and leave them. We've tried leaving him at a couple of different places or taking him out of his bubble, and it hasn't gone well. And we gave it lots of good efforts, and it just didn't go well, And so you have to kind of know your child and know
how long.
Yeah, what you can do and how long you can leave them and where you can leave them and who you leave them with, and who you can trust. And Bryce requires one-on-one. We know that. And so we have left him at Michael's house before to play for a couple of hours, and it worked great. Mm-hmm. And that's great. And sometimes I think we forget that we have that resource. Mm-hmm. And so, it's good to kind of keep a list and keep a going list. And there may be people you take off your list, because when Bryce was younger, we did the nanny cam thing. You should, whether your child's on the spectrum or not, to see how your child's being treated when you're not there and you're paying somebody. And we had somebody, I remember Bryce was probably 2-ish at that time, right? I'm going to say 2 to 3. And we had gone to do a photography lesson, or class, the last session, whatever. So I just remember we were watching it back, and she was checking her reflection in something, while Bryce was standing there and crying and looking up at her. And I don't know what he needed or what he wanted.
Her attention,
and he wasn't like being bratty about it. He was just like genuinely crying. And when we saw that, her name went off the list. I was surprised, and I was sad and disappointed by it. But I'm like, you know what?
If you're not engaged with our child,
you are one-on-one.
Paying attention.
Yes. We're paying you to be engaged with him and to interact with him for a couple of hours. That's all. Mm-hmm. You can do that, right? And so,
Don't be on your phone the whole time.
No. So, that's really what we were watching for. Are they playing with him? Are they interacting with him? Is they just?
And we got some good ones.
Yeah.
So.
And so just keep that going list. Kind of know who you can leave longer, who you don't.
We thought all of these people were equally qualified and that they were equally as good, going to be equally as good with Bryce, but it turns out that they weren't, right? And the only way we knew that was because of the nanny cam. Otherwise, Bryce couldn't tell us.
Oh, no. And when you drop them off, everything's fine. And when you pick them up, everything's fine.
Yeah, everything went great.
Very responsible people, not even teenagers, early 20s. With jobs and very surprising. But anyway, that's how we learn. And, but we're very grateful for the ones we can trust. And I will tell you this too, so we have respite care available to us. But when they were sending me some names that were possible candidates for respite, and I just went onto Facebook and put their name in. I'm like, no, I can tell you straight up, no. And I'm going to make a snap judgment based on that.
Well, you could look at their posts and what they're posting, and you're like, I don't want my kid with that person.
No. And I understand they've gone through the agency and
whatever.
They've got all that, but it is
you can have a good background check and still not be a good person.
That is true too. Or not a good caregiver with your child. Right. Let's just say that. I don't want to say a good person in general.
That's what I meant.
But not a good caregiver. So we'll go with that, right? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, that's what I'm looking for. Someone that has compassion, someone who is caring, and someone who's not just here to get some money and play on their phone, which is, I've witnessed that too, especially in other places with RBTs at the music place. So I just, just be selective. But I guess I really just want to talk about it too, because I just want to encourage people to be open to it, but then look at all sides of it. And then just know that there probably are people out there who are compassionate and are willing and are able to help. And some will do it for money, and actually some will do it for free out of the goodness of their heart. But do your due diligence, and if anything, start small and go out for a quick lunch, or go out for, if you don't want to do a full dinner,
30 minutes,
go 30 minutes to a park nearby, or someplace you can go where if it's just you, if you need the sanity break, or you and your spouse can just go do that. And then be nearby. I mean, we've done that too. We've just gone, especially if it's a new person watching him, we will be within 15 minutes of our house in case we get a call, but at least we're out. And I just wanted to encourage everybody to do that.
Very good.
I don't think I have anything else today.
Let's wrap it.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed our first video. And if you're listening to the audio only, head over to YouTube, find Parenting Autism Show, and there we are.
Okay. I wanted to ask one more request, though. So there's, if you're watching this on YouTube specifically, if you could maybe make a comment and tell us where you're located, like what country. And if you're in the United States, you can say what state. I don't need like your address or anything. I just want to get an idea of where people are at.
And where you're watching from.
Where you're finding
or where
us.
you're listening from.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would appreciate that.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Hey guys, Chris here. I just want to give you a few ways you can find us on the internet and connect with us. The first would be our website, www.parentingautismshow.com. That has our blog, that has pictures, it has other resources for autism. You can also find us on YouTube if you search for Parenting Autism Show. There you're going to find our elevator YouTube videos, vacation videos, just things that we do with Bryce, some ways to work through meltdowns. Also, Facebook and Instagram. Facebook if you search for Parenting Autism Podcast, and Instagram is Parenting Autism Pod. Then there is our book on Amazon. It's called Parenting Autism: The Early Years. If you haven't read it, it's got 5-star reviews, and they also make great gifts for somebody that you might know. Then there's our email. If you have any questions or you want to sign up for our newsletter, please email us at parentingautism@att.net. And lastly, if you'd be kind enough to leave us a review, we really would appreciate it. It helps other parents find our show and give them encouragement as well. So thanks for listening again, and have a great day.